Hi, my name is JR Alli, and today we're going to be talking about color grading. More specifically, what it is and why it's important. I'll also be showing you how I color grade my videos. Let's get into it. Before we begin, I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, Squarespace got you covered. You'll hear about them at the end of this video. So color grading, what is it? Color grading is when you take footage that comes right out of your camera and manipulate the colors to help add to a story and make your videos look a lot more professional. A lot of people ask me what I shoot in. I shoot in Cin 4 on my Sony a7S Mark II. If you have a low-end DSLR, chances are you don't have a log profile. But if you turn down saturation, contrast, and sharpening in your camera, you can later on in post go in and color grade your image to make it look a certain way. Before I begin, I just want to say I am not a professional colorist by any means. I am just going to be talking about some tips that I learned and share with you my methods of how I go about color grading. As I make a lot of travel films, I always see time and time again the same LUT or lookup table being used, and it's usually the M31 LUT. The thing to understand is that this type of color palette, the teal and orange, has been around in cinema for years. It's been used in Hollywood time and time again, and I'm sure you can see this color palette in some of your favorite films. Because of this M31 LUT being created, or LUTs similar to it, we now see the resurgence of this type of color palette. But it isn't a bad thing. You need to understand that colors can complement each other, and here the orange and teal works really well with these tropical warm vibe videos. So if your video is entailing that type of vibe, then you should use this type of color palette. The wrong way to use LUTs is by slapping it on all your footage. You have to edit your footage first before you apply LUTs. It's also important to note you don't have to use the M31 LUT. There are many different LUTs out there are many different color palettes out there, and some color palettes may fit your video more than others. A common mistake I see in videos nowadays is that footage is corrected so much they forget to take into consideration people's skin tones. That is one thing that you always want to get right, and that's something I'm going to be showing on the computer as well. Down in the description box below, I have provided a few LUTs that I usually use. There's an M31 example there. There are a few different other ones that are in log and Rec 709 footage. Log is for more flat profiles, and Rec 709 is if you shot it in basic color mode. For the first method, I'm going to be showing you how I usually color grade my footage, but this method costs a little bit of money. The second method will be color correction that could be manipulated in any editing software, and I'll be showing that in Premiere Pro. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first method is what I would usually do to color grade videos. Essentially, it's using a program called Film Convert. It uses camera profiles that are already inside the preset. I am not affiliated in any way or sponsored by Film Convert, but I just use this every single day. So it's available for Premiere Pro, After Effects, Photoshop, Final Cut. So basically all the editing softwares. I have two clips here. A clip of my friend Lishan shot on the Sony a7S Mark II and a drone shot in Hawaii on the DJI Mavic Pro. I'm gonna add Film Convert on here first. I usually take off the grain right away, specifically because grain does not look good on YouTube, especially how it compresses the footage. One thing to keep in mind as well, I usually saturate my footage a little bit more because YouTube tends to desaturate it as well, which kind of sucks because of the compression. So the cool thing about Film Convert, it has all the cameras here you can choose from. I'm gonna click into Sony a7S Mark II here and go down to the picture profile that it was shot in, so it's Cin. And boom, right away you'll see it start to take shape here. The background's blown out a little bit. I did not shoot this with an ND filter, but we can salvage this, bump up the color grade on it a little bit more. So it's exposure 1. The footage here looks a little dark. I'm gonna go through what we have here are film stocks that are already preset into Film Convert. I'm gonna test out some here. One thing we wanna keep in mind, the reason I use this shot here is skin tones. I wanna make sure his skin tones are perfect. They're not too warm, they're not too cold. Okay, yeah, we're gonna bump up the exposure to 2, and we're gonna use this film stock here because it brings up the shadows a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can play with the temperature here. I usually like to color grade my stuff a little bit cooler, but I'm gonna bump it down to 5,550. I think that looks good right there. And this is just a really quick grade of the footage. Then this is where you get into color correction. And this is where you can kind of make your own little stylistic choices. For the shadows here, I'm not gonna bring the shadows down. In fact, I'm gonna bump it up a little bit and make it a little bit faded. Bring the midtones a little bit to the blues, right about here. I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna bump up the midtones a little bit as well. Highlights, you see that it's a little blown out there, so I'm gonna just turn the highlights down a little bit, and I think that helps a lot. And I love to add a little bit of saturation, so I'm gonna boost that up a little bit. I think that's pretty good right there. So the before and after, you'll see Boom, boom. Pretty good color grade on this. We're gonna go on to the next shot. You'll see here that they actually do have a DJI camera profile. What I've learned is that the Cine 1 Pro for the A7S Mark II grades this footage actually a little bit better. I love the colors that it's giving out right now. I'm gonna play with this a little bit. I think this is a pretty good grade. Okay, so after I've color graded both these clips here, usually you can add it to an adjustment layer, adjust the levels of the LUT accordingly. That way all your footage has a similar look to it. M31 LUT I think will fit perfectly for this. I'm gonna open up the opacity here. I think 50% works good. And it just adds a little bit of a filter to it, makes those teals pop a little more. And then we're gonna go to the second clip. And you'll see it just adds that little bit of a teal and orange, especially in the shadows. Now let's jump into Premiere Pro. I'm gonna use the color wheels that are prevalent in every editing software. Let's go. So we're gonna search for Lumetri color, put it on the clip, and then we're gonna get to work here. I like the temperature here already. I'm just gonna turn it down a little bit there. We're gonna play with the tint. We're gonna bump the contrast because it's a little bit faded at the moment. We're gonna bring the highlights down because the background is a little overexposed. So right now you see, just from a little bit of touching up, we're already getting something that we kind of like. So I kind of like that for now. I'm gonna maybe bump up the saturation to maybe 125. We're gonna get into creative, and this is where you can add your LUT. So I'm gonna go to M31. I'm gonna use the Rec 709 LUT here. I'm gonna bring down the intensity to 50. Skin tone's still looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna play with the exposure a little bit. I'm gonna go into the curves and change this a little bit. Still want it to be pretty faded. And then the final process is back to the color wheels. There's always color wheels involved. I'm gonna just push it a little bit to the yellows here to get the skin tones back to how I want it. Highlights, we're gonna push to the blues. And if I turn it off, you'll see the before and the after with the color grade, not too oversaturated. So we're gonna do the second clip, which is the drone clip, with the same process here. And there we go. That's kind of like the final look of it using the M31 LUT and using Lumetri color. You'll see the before and after. Overall, I think I'm really liking this look for both of these right here, color graded pretty nicely. And that will wrap up this video. Again, I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I've been using Squarespace myself to host my own website where I post a lot of my portfolio work. Getting a website that's easy to set up with beautiful templates, Squarespace is the right choice for you. It takes a lot of the hard work out of creating a website. And if you're someone who's looking to sell something like prints, which I'm thinking of doing as well in the near future, Squarespace makes it easy for you to set up your online store as well. So when you're ready to start, please visit squarespace.com/JRAlli and use the offer code JRAlli for 10% off at checkout for your first domain or website. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out any of my other social media links, it'll be down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.